On the day Mike and I were supposed to pick up our marriage certificate, he was nowhere to be found at the marriage bureau. Instead, he showed up on his first love Sandy's Twitter. Sandy blatantly declared war, and I was furious. So I impulsively grabbed the handsome guy standing at the entrance of the marriage bureau who looked like he might be in a similar boat. "Wanna get hitched?" Unexpectedly, he agreed right away. Then I boldly posted our marriage certificate on Twitter. Mike was livid when he found out, confronting me at my doorstep with eyes burning with anger like I was the one who broke a promise. But I was up at 5 a.m., spent hours putting on the most elaborate makeup, and stood eagerly waiting at the bureau's entrance from morning till night, like a fool he never showed. And him? He skipped the date we set at the beginning of the year to rush to the hospital, busy pampering and comforting another woman. "Sandy had an accident near your place. I took her to the hospital, and she needed surgery." "She's your sister. Why are you mad at your own sister?" He frowned, looking impatient while he explained. His explanation made me snap. "Who told you she's my sister?" "Sandy." Remembering all her words but forgetting that I've said I don't have a sister and I despise Sandy. Sandy isn't just anyone, she's my dad's illegitimate daughter with a mistress. My mom was the legitimate wife, yet Sandy's a year older than me. For years, Sandy and her mom lived under our noses, keeping the peace. It wasn't until after college entrance exams that their true identities were revealed. My mom fell ill on the spot and passed away not long after. My dad took all her savings and shamelessly reunited with them, disappearing from my life. Sandy left for abroad, funded by my mom's money, catering to my dad's guilt over her upbringing. She intruded back into my life 4 years after Mike and I started dating, claiming she was Mike's first love and I was just her stand-in. I never believed her meddling, though she shamelessly tested Mike's loyalty endlessly. Not acknowledging her as an enemy was restrained enough for me, yet Mike had the audacity to tell me not to be mad at my sister. I pushed him away hard. Fine, I won't be mad at trashy people or mistresses, but he needed to get lost. Yet he stubbornly stood there, accusing me of acting like a child with a tantrum. I pulled back, tears welling up, choking my voice. "Was it Sandy crying and begging you not to leave, or did you willingly become her lapdog? You knew I can't stand Sandy, and yet you ran over to play into her hands? Mike, I underestimated you. I was wrong about you, too." I broke down, crying, feeling humiliated after a day of waiting and being incredibly tired. Mike wanted to argue but seeing me so upset, he caved in. "I'm sorry, let's go get the certificate tomorrow, okay?" "No," I said. Too late. He'd forgotten I'm already married to someone else. I waited all day for him, morning until night. While he took Sandy to the hospital, I waited. While he stayed by her bed, I waited. While he comforted her, I waited. But even when Sandy's parents arrived at the hospital, he was still there wasting my time, laughing and chatting. "Sorry, I'm done waiting." I showed him the marriage certificate, emphasizing every word. "Read it clearly, I'm married." His temper flared again, cornering me against the wall with a ferocious look. "Get divorced by tomorrow." His 6 icy words were a demand, an order, and about pride. See, this is the best retaliation for someone who thought I'd never leave him. Yet while he was fooling around, I'd already said bye. "Do you have to be so stubborn?" He raised a fist, punching the wall near my ear, releasing a metallic scent in the air. Seeing me unmoved, he leaned on my shoulder, whispering softly, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." I forced a bitter smile, pushing him away. Why bother? This ceremony was planned half a year ago. You met Sandy halfway and changed your mind just like that. If you couldn't come in the morning, you could have come in the afternoon. If you were too busy, you could have at least called. Or did you just assume I'd forgive you for everything unconditionally? Mike, honestly, your actions today were really disrespectful, and I'm disappointed. As someone with a partner, you didn't maintain boundaries with Sandy and didn't bother to care why I might be upset. Just so you know, I am upset. What car accident, what delay, the fact you actually chose her just tells me everything. It wasn't some unintended incident. You had a choice and you made it. Mike didn't expect me to voice all my grievances and expose his little schemes. He looked flustered and stammered, "No, it's not like that with her, No, it is." I should have argued more, but I was exhausted. Wearing high heels, without food or water, standing under the blazing sun for 12 hours had drained me. My legs were swollen, and I had no energy left to stand, let alone argue. I've said my piece. I didn't want to see him or hear his voice anymore. I just wanted him gone. I pulled out my phone. "Honey, my ex-fiancé is blocking my door." "My address?" "It's..." Under Mike's incredulous, enraged gaze, I sent a message for help to the man I'd just married today. I wanted to make sure he knew that waiting was no longer an option. My new husband was incredibly efficient. He arrived in no time. Just then, I coincidentally had a bout of low blood sugar and collapsed right into his arms. He was all boyfriend material, holding me tight and telling Mike to leave. The last bit of consciousness I had told me Mike was furious. He slammed his fists into my front door twice, veins bulging in his arms. But under the intimidating aura of my taller new husband, Mike left in a rage. I smiled and gave the new husband a thumbs up. Then I blacked out. When I woke, it was midnight. My stomach grumbled, I was starving. I got up to find something to eat. The guy lying on the couch freaked me out for no reason. My terrified scream startled him as well. He had a handsome face with clear features, wearing a casual white shirt that was crisp and clean. I rubbed my eyes, coming back to my senses. "Isn't this the husband I picked up at the Civil Affairs office?" He gave me a broad, cheerful smile and said, "Honey." All of a sudden, a wave of sadness hit me. In the dim night, I walked over. "Thank you. Thank you for protecting my dignity, for not letting me seem so down and out in front of him." I couldn't control it, and I started crying. The grievances, anger, and reluctance poured out like a flood, in front of this intimate stranger. "What's there to cry about? Come lean on me. Cry as much as you need, let it all out, I have time." He was gentle and patient, just staying there, letting me lean for quite a while. Until my stomach started growling, then he gently patted my back and told me he had some porridge warmed up. His voice was soothingly youthful and slightly deep, making the night feel unexpectedly warm. I turned on the dining room light, and under the warm foggy orange glow, he was refreshingly poised, with handsome features, like a protagonist from a novel. Oh my God. Did I just grab a college student off the street? Suddenly, I felt uneasy. Lucas, he answered casually, cultured and polite, making my own nervousness and embarrassment even more pronounced. "Lucas, how old are you? You're not still in school, are you?" I stammered out my worry. Thankfully, he just gave a helpless smile, then said easily, "You don't pay enough attention to me, it's written on the marriage certificate." "Oh well, let me officially introduce myself. Lucas, 26, Masters in Finance, works in investment banking, back in the country for half a year, has a car and a house, and an annual." "Stop." I hurriedly interrupted him, blushing. I was worried about exploiting a college student, not trying to grill him on his background. He laughed, his eyes forming crescents. "All right. Whenever you want to know, I'll tell you, no secrets." I was at a loss. Blushing, I focused on eating porridge to divert my attention. The porridge was good, but I was uncomfortable and craved something spicier for a kick. I took out my phone and asked him, with genuine and pitiful eyes, if he could join me for some barbecue. He raised an eyebrow and after a moment, replied, "Sure." I ordered barbecue and beer, and we sat on the carpet, determined not to get up sober. The next day when I woke up at noon, the temperature had dropped 13 degrees. I slept warmly and deeply, while the man on the couch, covered with my thin blanket, was feverish at 102 degrees. I rushed him to the hospital. As soon as we entered the lobby, I ran into my disappearing dad and Mike, who was wheeling Sandy out for discharge. I instinctively glanced at the wheelchair, thinking what kind of car accident kept Mike busy at the hospital for a whole day. Turns out it was just a scratched ankle, discharged within a day. Lucky I acted decisively and wasn't fooled by the jerk. Honestly, I really didn't want to see them, so I tried to avoid them. But Sandy just had to make her presence known, loudly calling out to me, claiming she wanted to apologize. I paused my steps, though she quickly switched her tone, sarcastically pointing out, "You just married someone on a whim, isn't that a bit rash?" Oh, I thought she was being kind, it turns out she was just here to stir the pot. Jack, hearing I married someone on a whim, immediately tensed up and got mad. "Who did you marry? How reckless. Marriage isn't a game, you're too flippant for a girl." Listen to this, a father calling his daughter flippant, isn't that just terrible? I didn't plan a wedding, didn't cheat, but broke it off with a scumbag and found a new, likable guy to slowly build a relationship with. How does that make me flippant? He, a cheater unfaithful to marriage, what right does he have to criticize me for taking marriage lightly? I let out a scoff of disdain. His eyebrows tightened like knots. Scoff if you want. What's that attitude? No upbringing. Sandy said, "It was just Mike sending your sister to the hospital, wasn't it?" She didn't mean to. Adding a tone like he's disappointed I can't even handle it properly. Really biased, huh? You play the mistress knowingly, you cheat in marriage, what right do you have to criticize me having a lawful marriage? Still expecting me to be magnanimous and let her betray me too? Just wait a decade until Sandy walks in with a kid to throw me under the bus? "Nancy, what nonsense are you spouting?" Said with too much force. Father and daughter united, perfectly synchronized, one mouth, one hand. I held my face, hit red with a slap, bearing the swelling pain, coldly glaring at Jack. "You forget. My upbringing died when my mom got so angry she passed away. My mistake. You were busy building a new family, being Sandy's dad, so where did you have time to pay me any mind? So tell me, Sandy's dad, in what capacity are you hitting me now?" "Nancy, don't speak to your father like that." Mike, who had been silent, suddenly spoke to me. "Father?" I chuckled mockingly. "Yesterday, outside my door, you begged me to get a divorce, and now you're fine enough with Sandy to call him dad today? You really are birds of a feather." I didn't hold back, struck right at their sore spots, leaving them speechless. Jack, ashamed and angry, raised his hand again. "Nancy. If you keep talking like this, I will." Another slap threatened to be dealt. I stepped forward, pointing to my bright red cheek. "So you want to hit again?" "Not gonna happen. I won't let you disgusting people bully me anymore, even if you're biologically my dad." Wiping away teary eyes, I raised my arm. "That hard slap, I can't just let it slide, time to pay it back." But the person beside me suddenly stopped me. His forehead was burning hot, but he weakly lowered his gaze. "Don't hit. I'll deal with him." His voice, hoarse but strong. As soon as he said it, he reached out with his long arm and unexpectedly pushed Jack to the ground. Not too hard, but just right, enough to humiliate. Jack was fuming on the floor, his face looking terrible. Mike and Sandy both asked, in sync, "Who the hell is Lucas?" Lucas, still feverish and leaning feebly on my shoulder, his eyes were sharp and assertive as he warned, "Nancy's husband. Remember that, she has a husband. Bully her again, and I won't be so nice." Sandy's pupils suddenly widened as she stood up in surprise. "Lucas?" Lucas glanced at her briefly, then buried his head back into my shoulder, ignoring her. "Let's go." I could see it clearly, Sandy was struggling, her face turning shades of green and purple, her emotions shifting like storm clouds. While waiting in the ER, I couldn't help but nudge Lucas, asking eagerly, "What's the deal with you and Sandy? That girl just now?" He leaned back on the bench, eyes half closed. "Don't know her." "Then why did she look at you all upset?" "I thought maybe." thought what? Ex-girlfriend? An old flame? Lucas glanced at me with a smirk. I nodded. With his looks and demeanor, top-tier investment banker, if he's not a player, I'd think he's lying to me. He patted my head helplessly. She might just be jealous of you. There are too many girls eyeing me. I'm not interested in knowing each one, let alone remember their faces. Sandy, I really don't know her. But you, his eyes glinting mischievously, being Mrs. Nancy, you'll have to get used to the random jealousy from strangers. Of course, sometimes it comes from guys too. Mr. Lucas, thank you for letting me experience Sandy's jealousy firsthand. I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. The dark cloud from earlier vanished with his teasing. Looking at his handsome face, marrying young seemed like such a pity. Lucas had acute gastritis, very embarrassing, and the doctor said he ate something bad. It was obviously the late-night barbecue I ordered in a drunken stupor. I covered my face, feeling guilty as I fussed around him, eager to help. The next day, back at the office, I hadn't even sat down when rumors hit me like a ton of bricks. My coworker, Linda, pulled me aside. She said there's a video in our group chat claiming I ditched Mike, cheated, and hooked up with a young pretty boy. I checked it out, and it was a secret video of me taking care of Lucas at the hospital, paired with weird music and sensational captions, painting me as immoral and careless with emotions. Mike and I dated for 6 years, from the same college to working at the same company, always publicly as a couple. Now, Mike's the R&D director, and I'm the marketing director. We were pretty well known, so calling it quits on our wedding day stirred a lot of company gossip. But I never expected Mike to not only play the victim but also fan the flames, solidifying my bad reputation. Colleagues started pointing fingers and whispering behind my back. In a key project meeting, Mike, with a poker face, bumped my important project to the bottom, arguing he was short-staffed. Trying to leverage the rumors to his max. He said he's focused on overseas projects, the one Sandy's handling. Sandy's Mike's suggestion, someone the company recruited with a high salary, is also a marketing director, in charge of overseas markets. To me, she's a direct competitor. I didn't think Mike would stoop so low, spreading rumors and undermining my work. Being short-staffed wasn't new, and now, leaving me in the lurch was clearly a ploy to make me crawl back to him begging. Not gonna happen. I, Nancy, am inherently rebellious. I smiled and said I understood, then immediately led my team to adjust our plan, minimizing our technical needs. Yet, even with minimal requests, he kept me waiting indefinitely and diverted top talents to Sandy. I promptly flipped it on him, publicly filing a complaint. Using company technical staff shortages as a reason, I confidently applied for external support from the group. My counterattack was decisive. Whether the project succeeded or failed, he lost face. It succeeded without him, it failed because he didn't cooperate. He was left in a bind. I stayed calm and composed, feeling free and easy. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd use actual results to smack him. Without him, I'd not only manage but thrive. And with an open support team, more people would use it, making his job even more passive. So, I asked my team to change the plan back. Not only did we revert, we even expanded R&D needs, adding previously imagined ideas Mike's team couldn't pull off. I geared up, eager to take things to new heights and show him up. Thanks to Lucas, with his widespread connections, the company's supplier made an exception and gave me access to an elite team, saying they happened to have a manpower model test for me to try out. And once I tried it, I didn't want to stop. The team was experienced, professional, and efficient, making Mike's team look weak. I was revved up, ready to go all out. And not just me, my team's girls were all motivated by the other side's brilliant guys. I couldn't help but laugh, deciding to treat Lucas to a meal to show my gratitude. But Lucas was busier than expected. What I thought was just a laid-back college guy turned out to be a sharp and savvy top investment banker. Flying everywhere, busy as can be, handling deals in the millions without a sweat. A star player. He's so busy that even I, a seasoned workaholic, felt anxious. But, hey, I'm the other half on our marriage certificate, I can cut in line. I was sincere, choosing an outrageously expensive restaurant I'd usually avoid. He came straight from the airport, in a sleek suit, hair perfectly styled, exuding elite professionalism. He looked so different from when I first saw him, a total picture of sophisticated excellence. For a second, I couldn't help but swallow. He was so handsome. Not just me, other women in the restaurant had their eyes glued to him. Only when he sat across from me, did those eyes reluctantly cool down. He was charming, refined while eating, every move gentlemanly. I enjoyed the meal from the start. But then a pesky spoiler showed up uninvited, standing right in front of us. Yep, it was Sandy and Mike again. Sandy saw me dining there, feigning surprise. Oh wow, Mike often brings me here for a meal, too. The implication was clear, as if I wouldn't get it. Mike is such a hypocrite. We've been together for ages, and he never took me to a fancy restaurant, not even one that costs around $1,000 per person. But whatever, we're done. Not my problem now, and he can't get to me. I'm unfazed. Honestly, knowing they'd ruin my appetite, I ate at home. I was pretty blunt with my words. But Sandy didn't leave. She sat down like she owned the place. Anyone who didn't know better would think they're an old married couple with how close they act. Her words were a backhanded compliment that left everyone uncomfortable, except her. She acted oblivious and even smiled at Lucas. Hi, Lucas, I'm Sandy, Nancy's sister. Sorry, but my wife is an only child. No sisters, Lucas said flatly, keeping his focus on pouring me more wine. He couldn't have cared less about her attempts at friendliness. Also, you're interrupting our dinner. He went right ahead and showed them the door. You're awesome. I beamed at him, giving him a huge thumbs up. If we're talking about being annoying, I can play that game. You actually listen to me, unlike some people who are both blind and deaf to everything but drama. I shot a glare at Mike before raising my wine glass. My husband is younger, more handsome, smarter, and richer than you. Yet you're still standing here embarrassing yourself, shamelessly. Feel good about that? Seeing my childlike excitement, Lucas flashed a tender smile. He was so gentle when he smiled, like a cool summer breeze putting me at ease. Sure thing, I said, taking a big gulp of wine feeling all high and mighty. So, Mrs. Nancy, he inquired out of nowhere, where should I stay, now that I'm back from my trip? Caught off guard, I almost spit my drink out. I forgot to mention, Lucas had been on a business trip since leaving the hospital. So, technically, this was our third meeting since we impulsively married on the same day we were both dumped. We hadn't even figured out how we wanted to handle our marriage. Maybe we should discuss the, details of our partnership. I mean marriage? I stammered, feeling my cheeks heat up for no apparent reason. Lucas is taller, more handsome, and much clearer-headed than Mike. If I gave it a shot and fell for him post-marriage, it didn't seem too bad. Lost in thought about how the whole marriage thing might unfold, my phone rang and snapped me out of it. It was Amy, and she was crying on the phone. The big fashion show tomorrow morning was falling apart. The venue cancelled, negotiations failed, and people were brawling on site. Lucas told me to stay calm and offered to drive me over. Before we left, I caught Sandy's sneaky grin as she watched me. When I got there, the scene was chaotic, and our equipment had been violently dismantled. I had a hunch this wasn't a simple problem when I saw Sandy's Twitter post. Her event was moved to our venue. Suddenly, I remembered this venue belongs to Mike's relatives. He really hit us hard with this one. It wasn't mere revenge, it was an attack. I checked my watch, we had less than 12 hours. I forced myself to stay calm, scrolling through contacts, making call after call. But it was all too last minute, and even the friends who wanted to help couldn't. At 10 p.m., Sandy's people arrived and started tearing down more of our setup. I was angry, frustrated, and felt utterly helpless. Our team had worked so hard, day and night, pouring our heart and soul into this project. And now, we didn't even get to see our baby born. Just because of some petty exes. I fought back tears because if I broke down, everyone would lose hope. I continued calling other venues. Time ticked away, and by 11 p.m., I started losing hope. Lucas, who had been calling nonstop too, gestured for me to check my phone. He had sent me some potential venues that could work at the last minute. While he was still on the phone, I checked them out. Luckily, 2 of them matched our current layout, so most of our setup could be transferred with minimal hassle. I was about to head out to scout the places when Lucas finished his call and asked, "If you could get this venue back, would you still move?" I froze, then slowly shook my head. I didn't want to beg Mike. He was a scumbag and a liar, and I didn't want to give him that satisfaction. My voice choked up. Yes, Mike cornered me. I could swallow my pride and beg. But I just couldn't do it. When it came down to choosing between the project and my dignity, I chose dignity. I couldn't face my team's disappointed faces, but even more, I couldn't let a bad person win. "What are you thinking about?" Lucas chuckled, gently messing with my hair. "You think I'd let you beg another man? I don't have that kind of patience." He wiped my tears and said confidently, "I assure you, the venue is back and you don't need to move." He told everyone to rest and regroup in 30 minutes to reinstall the equipment. He spoke so casually, like it was no big deal, but his confidence was comforting. "How'd you do that?" I asked. "Sold my soul," he joked lightly. "You went to beg?" Just the thought filled me with despair again. "Nah, quit overthinking," he said, ruffling my hair again. "Turns out, the venue owner is one of my clients. He's been wanting to meet up for ages, but I've been too busy." I chuckled at the turn of events. "Busy because you don't earn enough?" He gave me a knowing smile, scratching the back of his head. "Exactly. So, like I said, sold my soul. Taking over a company like that means more overtime for me." I laughed through my tears. No regrets about not marrying Mike and instead finding someone like Lucas who brought peace of mind. Just like that, with Lucas's help, we got the venue back and finished our last rehearsal. The show was great. Good luck tomorrow. Lucas stayed with me till the crack of dawn and didn't leave. "Thank you." I finally took a breath. "I owe you big time for this one. How do you plan to thank me?" He raised an eyebrow, playing along. "How about marrying you?" I joked right back. "That sounds half-hearted. You were always Mrs. Nancy. I'm not traveling for the next month. How about you, Mrs. Nancy, move in with me and think it over?" I stopped in my tracks and looked up at him. There was a sparkle in his eyes, bright and daring. I nodded seriously. "Okay. After the event, let's try marrying first, loving later. Give it a shot." I'd actually thought about marrying Lucas before. Meeting by chance at the marriage office and clicking immediately felt like fate. Since my last relationship is well behind me, it feels like it's time to give myself a new chance. The next day's big finale show blew everyone away, setting a new company event record and stirring constant buzz in the industry. Everyone had fire in their bellies, like we turned obstacles into opportunity in the end. The show collection sold out instantly, and even other items suddenly flew off the shelves. Our performance was so outstanding it even caught the higher-ups' attention. The head office went ahead and gave us an annual Excellence Project Award, which gave our team a huge morale boost and made us the talk of the town. Riding the high, I used the opportunity to report the supplier's shady behavior to the higher-ups, who promptly sent an audit team to investigate. Let's see if in the face of profits, the supplier can still cover for Mike. Having vented my frustration, I was worn out, so I decided to take some vacation time. During my break, after packing my bags, I hopped into the passenger seat heading to Lucas's place. I'm typically slow to warm up. In my last relationship, it took 6 years. But I'd only known Lucas for less than a month. Despite all the mental preparation, I felt anxious and nervous. He noticed how stiff I was sitting and chuckled softly. Nervous? I nodded honestly. Instead of going home, he took a different route that went on forever, finally stopping at a hospital. He asked, "Do you remember? 8 years ago, 2 desperate teenagers sat here all night." Suddenly, I was pulled back to 8 years ago. That day, my mom couldn't take Jack's cheating anymore, nor the fact that the other woman and their daughter had lived openly near us for years, and she simply didn't wake up. That day, Jack was MIA, and I sat alone in the hospital hallway as my world crumbled. That day, a handsome boy in a white shirt stood by the window, looking painfully numb. He didn't cry or speak, just stood there like someone who shared my hurt. But he seemed better off than me. He had many trying to comfort him, though he didn't listen. We weren't that far apart, so I could hear that he too was separated from his mom that day. He stood at the window, eyes unfocused. I feared he'd spiral and tugged at his shirt. Don't lose hope. Our moms would be sad to see us hurt. Let's get even with those who wronged us. At least that way, we could uphold our mom's dignity. Back then, I naively thought all moms left because they were unhappy with their husbands. He didn't say a word, but the lost look in his eyes slowly focused. After a long time, he abruptly sat next to me. "What's your name?" "Nancy." "Wait, are you?" I covered my mouth, my heart racing. "Nancy, without your words that day, I might have jumped without realizing it. You made sense. We should settle scores and hold grudges. I went abroad for study and worked for years. Once back, I was lucky to quickly find you." "Found me?" "That day at the marriage office?" I was too surprised to speak. "Yes, that was intentional. I heard you were getting married and wanted to see for myself how the girl who cried so sadly but still helped me back then was finally finding her happiness. But seeing you wait there all day, I figured your guy was no good. So you agreed to marry me?" He nodded. I blushed, suddenly flustered like a crazy crush had taken over. He seemed not only to be marrying before loving but had been planning this for a while. Oh my heart was racing. "And," he paused, "I have more to confess. You might want to brace yourself." My pulse was already out of control, so I just looked at him with wide, clueless eyes. Clearing his throat, he looked at me. "Your company, it's my family's. Pretty soon, I'm taking over for my dad and will be your boss." "So, you're saying I'll soon become the boss's wife?" He chuckled, silent for a moment. "I guess the news was too shocking. You processed that fast." "No, it's shocking." The info dump took a moment to digest, scrambling my brain circuit. Lucas had been honest, showing our marriage was no mere whim but something he deeply considered. Young, sincere, wealthy, handsome, and he called me his true love. Could this actually be a blessing in disguise? And so it began. Lucas and I moved in together and started a sweet, loving relationship. Before long, Lucas quietly took over from Mr. One, becoming the head of the company. The news was kept tight-lipped, known to only a few, Mrs. Nancy included, of course. Lucas is a workaholic. As the young head honcho, he is both refined and decisive. In no time, he spearheaded 3 major investment and acquisition projects, driving company stock to skyrocket, impressing even the seasoned board members. However, behind those stock gains was Lucas's hard work, often working long hours. He was even busier than when he was in investment banking, hardly ever coming home after work. That said, he valued the brief moments we had commuting to work together each day. No matter how late he got home, he'd always drive me to work each morning right on time. From the 11th floor of Building A, I often found myself daydreaming toward the 37th floor of Building B. Sometimes on calls, he'd tell me he missed me and ask me to stand by the window so he could see me. Whether he could see me or not, I didn't know, but his affectionate words often turned my cheeks red, making my heart flutter, even as a grown-up who'd seen it all. Come weekends, he'd always carve out time, 2 hours, maybe half a day, solely to shower me with love and humor, taking any cues from me. He is top-notch in every way, someone I could never hope to match. Even though I'd dated before, being with Lucas felt like I was living in a honey jar, every moment warm and sweet. Colleagues noticed my big change, saying I carried the distinct aroma of someone in deep love. I could only smile and keep quiet. Of course, I'm dating your exceptional boss. If y'all met a husband like Lucas, you'd probably be even more jealous than me. When you're truly happy, that little defamatory video becomes nothing but a widely known rumor. 3 months into living together, Lucas is making his first public appearance as chairman at the shareholders' meeting. A leadership change in the group is a big deal, and everyone is on high alert, including me. Our marketing department is in charge of all the PR for the chairman. Our boss called me and Sandy for a meeting to assign tasks. Most of the chairman's promotion efforts are focused on the domestic market, so naturally, a lot of the work is on my shoulders. Sandy seemed a bit salty and kept asking our boss if she could take on some of my workload. But due to my distrust of her history, I turned down all her offers. After the meeting, she quickly caught up to me. I ignored her, but that didn't stop her from trying to get in my ear. I heard the new chairman cares a lot about morals. If he finds out you were seeing someone else on the day you got your marriage license, do you think he'll dislike you? I stopped, amused. I'm competent, and my character is solid and clean. Why would he dislike me? He doesn't. In fact, he loves me a lot. I should be thanking her for taking out the trash that was Mike. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't have reunited with Lucas. Maybe it was my imagination, but when I referred to Mike as trash, she smirked dismissively, a look of smugness mixed with boredom. Nancy, you're slightly smarter than your dumb mom, but just a bit. Do you know how many times your beloved Mike and I slept together over your 6 years together? In the house you two looked at, the car you two chose, the beddings you picked out together. Oh, and in his office next to yours. You didn't know? The good man Mike that you trusted loves a little thrill. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. I'm no fortress. The reality of 6 years tainted with filth and disgust made me furious, shaking with anger. The more I shook, the more pleased she was, relentless in pouring salt in my wounds. This is just the beginning. Did you know, every time we finished fooling around, I'd grab his phone and text you, baby, I love you. For every love you text he sent you, that's how many times he betrayed you. Nancy, are you as dumb as your deceased mom? Shut up. Sandy, I said shut up. Nausea turned my stomach, and my heart ached uncontrollably. I suspected Mike had been up to no good with Sandy, but I didn't expect them to be this brazen and shameless. My precious 6 years, reduced to dust in hindsight. Sandy wanted to destroy me, and Mike shamelessly colluded with her as her executioner. How could I have been so stupid and blind? It was revolting to the point of a breakdown. Sandy shrugged indifferently, like a victor. Nancy, whether it's your dad or Mike, you always lose so quickly. It's no fun beating you. I'm claiming the chairman's interview this time. Hope you don't make it too easy, give me a little satisfaction in victory. I summoned all my strength and slapped her twice. Once for insulting my mom, and once for being shameless. A mistress's daughter being a mistress, you're born to it. Coveting others' things isn't winning, it's a sickness. I suggest a mental hospital, don't leave it untreated. Beyond this, there's no point in talking more. Back at the office, I sent out 2 reports under my real name. The first one contained excerpts from the earlier phone recordings, sent to the company's ethics committee. The second one included all the evidence of Mike's improper dealings with business partners, sent to the economic crime tip line. The day I picked up Lucas for the conference, Mike blocked me at my office. He knew Sandy had spilled the past to me and looked remorseful, saying he wanted to explain. He admitted he was weak to temptation but claimed to have truly loved me all these years. I spat at him, I have true love now, your fake and cheap love isn't worth a thing. Watching the time, I was ready to leave. He snatched my phone and locked the office door, pressing me to listen to him. Hubby? He caught a glimpse of my chat on the phone, and the guilt evaporated, replaced by anger and menace. Have you been seeing that guy for a while? Did you cheat on me first? How dare you make me look like a fool? His eyes turned bloodshot, veins bulging, full of hostility. If not for the office cameras, I'd think he might tear me apart the next second. He was a bit out of control. I didn't want to provoke him further. Coldly, I said, not everyone is fickle. You should have known this day would come after the first time you strayed with Sandy. I've told you countless times how much I despise Sandy. You not only disrespected me but also humiliated me repeatedly. Wake up, our breakup was inevitable. Glancing at my watch, I felt a bit helpless. By now, Sandy had probably taken my place at the chairman's side. If she sees the chairman is my husband, will she go crazy with jealousy and kick Mike to the curb? Probably. Foolish Mike is still being manipulated by Sandy, setting me up without realizing it. Sandy will do anything to win, but this time, she underestimated Lucas's integrity and loyalty. He wouldn't settle for Sandy. Her presence disgusts him. I'll just sit back and watch the show. The drama unfolded faster than I expected. After about 10 minutes, Lucas suddenly burst into the meeting room with a bunch of people. He was the first to rush in, hugging me tightly, followed by a group of cops who quickly pinned Mike down. There was still half an hour before the press conference, and he actually left it to come find me. Several uniformed cops headed straight towards Mike, surrounding him. You've been reported for several financial misconduct cases related to the L Group. The evidence is solid. Please come with us. Mike was stunned. L Group? He looked at Lucas in shock, then turned his gaze to his direct supervisor, and his eyes immediately lost their shine. Lucas, the new boss? The chairman's only son? He was so shocked his eyes nearly popped out. With the evidence clear, he gave up struggling and obediently got taken away. As he reached the door, Lucas added, there's also the charge of illegal detention. Okay, several company executives replied in unison. The title chairman seemed like the last straw for Mike, making him panic. He croaked out my name in a low voice. I heard him but looked away, refusing to make eye contact. He broke the law, I wasn't going to plead for him. Lucas, in front of a bunch of subordinates, hugged me tightly. Whispering in my ear, he kept apologizing, I'm sorry. I was too busy and neglected this. You had to bear such a burden by yourself. I should have cleared these dangerous people from your side sooner. I buried my head on his shoulder, comforting him. It was an accident, you've already done great. He really had done a lot, I knew it all. When Mike broke off the engagement, he stepped up. When Mike and Sandy targeted me, he lowered himself to ask for favors. When I made achievements, he proudly introduced me to the higher-ups. When he took office, he even assigned people to speed up handling this matter. The cops that came weren't from my report, but Lucas' direct call. He had quietly done so much, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't touched. I glanced at my watch, less than 15 minutes to the press conference. He shouldn't waste any more time here. I gently pushed him away, helping him tidy up his outfit. Mr. Lucas, next is your spotlight moment. Good luck. He kissed my hand in front of everyone, his eyes filled with an unmistakable affection. Got it. With Mike arrested, Sandy was fired due to her office escapades. Word got out, ruining her reputation in the industry. No company dared to hire her again. Unemployed, she was stuck at home, just staring blankly at Jack. Her mom was seriously ill and hospitalized, but Jack's money had been spent on her studies abroad, leaving them unable to afford medical bills. Jack, getting on in years, reportedly tried earning money at a construction site. After just a few days, a nail pierced his foot. The day Julie moved out, a bunch of co-workers were surrounding me with concerned questions. I caught up with her. Try to be a decent person from now on, not a mistress. For your parents' sake, show some kindness. Being the boss's wife was an open secret everyone in the company seemed to know. Though Lucas worried the title overshadowed my own efforts, he discouraged coworkers from talking about it. Yet, he constantly flaunted our relationship on Twitter. Since Twitter was outside work, he didn't hold back on sharing his affection. Initially, colleagues hesitated to comment or like his posts until he privately encouraged them. Eventually, his posts were flooded with envy and likes. Later, they got tired of it and began muting his Twitter. With the boss successful in his career and happy in life, how could the rest of us not feel a bit crestfallen? At a departmental gathering with family, he casually wore that enchanting white shirt and showed up uninvited. Rarely brought down from his pedestal, the coworkers seized the chance to gossip. "When did you start liking Nancy?" "The second time I saw her," he confessed. "I stood by her side all day, debating whether to confess. And just as I was about to, she suddenly approached me." He laughed as he left everyone hanging. He had that warm, comfortable laugh, like a bright young man standing by my side that day, likening him to mountains, rivers, stars, and the sea. And then? Everyone was eager for more. Someone chimed in out of nowhere, "No wonder the boss looks familiar. He's the guy from Nancy's gossip video." Everyone finally understood, the puzzle pieces falling into place. Lucas seemed reminded of something and raised his phone, signaling everyone to check his Twitter. He had posted a video and requested that all department heads and managers share it. The video once used to slander him was now scrubbed clean. It had new, warm, and sweet background music, sending the cuteness factor through the roof. On the drive home, I asked, "And then? What were you going to say back then?" He stared into my eyes, then leaned in and kissed me. Then, I decided not to confess to her. I wanted to tell her I'd do better than any jerk. "How about we get hitched?" My heart skipped a beat, my eyes misted by the evening breeze, the tip of my nose stinging with emotion.